WTMP HD, Egypt Lake, Tampa, and now on 102.1 in Pinellas County.
Alrighty. Tampa Bay. It's that time again, boy. This has been one of those weeks. I have had so many people come up to me and tell me about they heard last week's show, what it was all about, how excited. We got to be, and I'm going to start this week's show off the same. Guys, black folks, you cannot vote for another 2 taxes. I'm just telling you that we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Let me go ahead and get the show started. But I got to tell you, at some point in time, you got to stop whipping your own ass. I mean, because that's what you're doing. You don't have the money. We are suffering the biggest, baddest inflation in 60 years. And when white folks catch a cold, you get COVID. So I'm just saying. So if white folks catching hell, you got to be catching hell. And for them to come to you with a bill that pretty much say, okay, I want my property tax to go up, and I want an additional sales tax. I mean, that makes no sense whatsoever. Anyway, let me go ahead and get the show started, and then I got a great guest that's going to be with us today, and we're going to keep talking, and we're going to let you know what's going on. And if you're going to call in the show today, the call-in number here at Porch Talk Radio, if you want to be on the air, is 888-247-8712. 888-247-8712. If you want to contact me later during the week or after the show, my cell phone number, Eddie Adams Jr. cell phone number is 813-12. You want to contact me by email, Eddie, EDDIE, at PorchTalkRadio.com. Eddie at PorchTalkRadio.com. All right. Now, folks, I'm going to tell you something, and this is just me watching, and I want you to watch this too. Unless the black community, the largest constant demographic that votes Democrat down the line, gets in and say, yeah, we want to be taxed more money. You ain't taking all we got right now. We got just a little bit over there in the corner. We want you to take that too. Unless we vote to have millage rate on our houses go up, unless we vote for another sales tax for the county, you all know, and all you gotta do is listen to the evening news. Listen to any news. White folks are saying we got a hard time. We having it hard. When you got a whole community full of poor people scraping and scratching just to make ends meet, and someone come to you and say, I know you're hurting, but can you take a little bit more? Cause we as the school board got $4 billion, but we need more money. And for those who don't think it's hurting bad enough, we as the county commission with a $7 billion annual budget think you can scrape up a couple more dollars to give us so we can mismanage that also. I'm just saying, guys, girls, women, men, everybody that's black, this community got to learn how to say hell no. Not no, hell no. That's what you got to say. And they'll learn because again, it's a reason they did one of them during the primary and one of them during the general election. they are hoping for a low voter turnout. And in that whole process that they can kind of get you while you're sleeping. See, because they don't expect you to turn up. And if you turn up, they damn sure don't expect you to say no. Less hell no. And that's what it's got to be. We as a community, the black leaders within this community, the black folks who got a platform to disseminate information to the community at large, us who are looking out to make this community move forward, not hold it back. Gotta say, you gotta look inward. Look at you and your family. Look at what's happening. Everybody who gets on the highway gotta pay gas. I don't care if you got one of the newfangled cars. You know, you got electric gas, but at the end of the day, electric cars cost money. See, y'all forget. See, marketing. They're some of the greatest marketers on the planet. Because somehow you think because you plug it in that it's not costing fossil fuel. It's not costing, money for gas. But it is. Because I'm going to tell you something. If all the electric generators, and most of them run off coal and other fossil fuel, if they turn off tomorrow, guess what? Your electric car is stuck in the driveway, or stuck in the garage, or stuck wherever you keep it. Don't think that it. See, that's why they sell you. Because they think you're stupid. They really think you don't realize that at the end of the day, that electric power is based on some kind of fossil fuel production process to produce electricity.
Eddie,
See?
You're not being PC. Come on now. California has 25% of their electric plug-in stations, 25%.
And they got rolling brownouts,
not working.
too.
Yeah,
they got rolling brownouts.
And on top of that, 25% of their electric chargers for these electric cars, they're not working.
Yeah.
Oh, what are you going to do then? You're stuck. Now, Eddie, you keep talking about this. Now, come on. This is not being PC. Just because we've canceled our contracts with Alaska, one of the largest providers of oil, just because the government wants to put the squeeze on everybody paying $10 a gallon of gas, all you have to do, as per the Director of Transportation and the Biden administration said, just go get an electric car. Eddie, did you say that they're how expensive are they?
And they're very expensive now, and because you ain't spending $5 a gallon, which I told folks,
We're there.
six months ago, I told you a year ago, $5 was in your near future.
Near.
Guess what?
Ta-da!
Guess what? Before November election, I guarantee you. Well, it's already $5. A lot of places you just ain't hit it right here in Florida, but you're 50 cents away. You're 50 cents away from $5 right now today. Just roll around, walk around. If you're in the hood, look at. Matter of fact, most of them in the hood, y'all real close to $5 because no matter where you go, all these neighborhoods got all these $1 million, $2 or $3 million houses, but they got cheaper gas than they do in the hood. That should tell you that in our community, there's a reason why everything costs more for the poor folks, and for you to turn around and say, I'm gonna reward you punishing me for being poor, by taxing myself another penny, or taxing myself another $1 per thousand, on millage rate for the school board.
Yeah,
I just gotta say, people.
Come on, bring it.
I don't intend to be insulting, but you should be insulted that they would think, because I'm going to tell you, they sat around long and hard and planned and schemed and came up with all kind of reasons to do this now. The last time, they had a $4 million plus budget. And they sent a lot of black folks that you don't know to your community events and to your churches and stuff, and stood up and they gave you a speech about how good it was going to be. That's the last time when it passed. And then when it said it was illegal, and the court say, return the money to the people. Well, I started holding my breath.
Eddie, you're being awfully nice.
I will be blue, black, green, yellow. I be all the colors of a rainbow. If that was true, because I'm gonna tell you something. It is almost like an unknown, unwritten. Everybody know that if you ever pay a tax in, you will never get that tax money back. It's hard for them to sunset something. That's after it's been around for 30 years. They have a tax for 30 years. They say we're going to sunset in 30 years. 30 years come around, and everybody forgot it's supposed to be sunset. Now they keep a record of it. Everybody know it, but very seldom do they ever sunset taxes. Now, this one, the Florida Supreme Court said, return the money to the citizens. To the county, they told the county commissioners that. Now, for some reason, the county commissioners have been lollygagging, bopping around, doing all kind of frivolous stuff, but somehow they haven't managed to pay you back your over $500,000 that they illegally stuck their hand in your pocket and took. I mean, I tell you what the kind of people we're dealing with. So what they did was say, well, we got a new, better tax, and we're gonna put it in now when it's gonna hurt the most. That's what I think they're doing. So anyway, people, Hillsborough County, Tampa, black community, don't do that to yourself.
So there's a subliminal message here, Eddie. I think you're trying to say that the local government doesn't help the people, and you're being nice because you didn't talk about that $25 million or $35 million surplus that the water department has.
$34 million. The city of Tampa
surplus.
Water Department came up with.
It's a nonprofit with a surplus, and instead of giving the money back to the people as a credit,
yeah,
we can all.
On
it's our money.
On the water
it's
bill.
our money.
If push come to shove, they could have did it like that.
No, they want to do a $34 million building for 18 people.
A castle for 18 people.
So
and think about this: if push come to shove, if they wanted to return your water money, that $34 million,
just pay it up for a while.
They could lower your water bill. They ain't got to turn it to you one time. They can say, okay, we're gonna take your water bill down $10 a month, $15 a month until this surplus is used up, and then we'll go back to business as usual.
So the nonprofit, government-run, Democrat-led department is not giving money back. They're overcharging people, and they're rolling on thinking they can just keep it. Now, they just found some money.
Gabriel, I have never said that it was nonprofit.
Well, it's a government agency. They're not supposed to be for profit.
No.
Huh?
I'm telling you, the government is in the business to make money. Every city in the country.
That's not right.
Every city in the country
that should be illegal.
Makes money. They all do.
Well, I understand tax is a tax. I got that. But they should be using it for something they said they had it set up for. They're supposed to, look, we have a surplus. Let's go build this big old building for the hell of it.
Build a building with it. That's what they proposed to city council a week ago or 2 weeks ago.
When you get rid of some politicians.
Since I went down there.
Get rid of some politicians.
So, anyway, I got the heavy, hard stuff out the way, and I got a guest in the studio with me today.
We don't mean to scare you, sir.
And everybody in Tampa probably knows him, but he's one of my good friends from a long time ago. I have to say, I did a city tour with Fred way back in the day when he used to do the little bus tours and then the walking tours. Me and my wife, Fred Hearns is like the black historian. He was the unpaid black historian, record keeper for the community, and then the city hired him to be an official historian for the new
Tampa Bay History Center.
Tampa Bay History Center. So without any more ado, we're gonna have a nice conversation about what's happening with the Tampa Bay History Center and Mr. Fred Hearns. Thank you for coming to Porch Talk Radio.
Well, thank you, Eddie and Gabriel. I'm really happy to be here. This is my first time doing your show in this building.
Right.
But as you said, we've known each other over the years. And let me just say up front, the thing that I really appreciate about your program, no matter how hot the topic, no matter how much is on your plate, you always find time for on this date.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
give some
There
black
you
history.
go.
And that's why I'm here right now.
That's a safe thing you said. I like that.
Thank you. And I missed it maybe 2 times, and I got a bunch of calls. You missed it on this day. And I've been telling these guys for years, but they were saying it's not that popular, it's not that popular. You know, nobody cares if we miss it. And then a couple times we missed it, you know, I got all those calls. See, they don't get all the feedback. You know, I get my info out.
I can hit delete.
I get all the calls and everything, you know, and then people will repeat to me, you know, some of the stuff that I say, because what I try to do, you know, I actually had a black calendar that had every day of the year what happened on that day.
Huh.
And I used to do that, you know, so now, you know, I kind of mix in some of that with
Like a swirl?
with some of everything else that's happening around the world. And every now and then we get to repeat important dates where stuff important to the black community happened. And a lot of people don't think about it because they never even knew it. So that's the good that come out, education.
Absolutely. And the date that I wanted to talk about is May 21st, which is next Saturday, 1 week from today. And the Tampa Bay History Center manages some property. It used to be a plantation. It dates back to the days of slavery, all the way back to the 1840s. This property in Brooksville is named Chinsegut Hill. Chinsegut is an Eskimo term from Alaska, and it means the spirit of where lost things are found. Very profound, and this is a free day open to the community. The highlight of the day next Saturday up in Brooksville will be the reading of the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, we've had this ceremony 3 times in the city of Tampa when I was working for the city of Tampa. Unfortunately, when I retired, that was the end of that celebration in the city. But because, Eddie, there are so many celebrations of Juneteenth,
Right.
which I'd like to get into a little later, is the difference between Juneteenth and May 21st. We decided that rather than go against these dates, which have been celebrated in Tampa for quite a while, I've joined those celebrations.
Right.
We would take May 21st, which is the Florida Emancipation date. It's actually May 20th, but we're celebrating it on next Saturday, May 21st, up in Hernando County in Brooksville. But it's free and open to anyone from Tampa who'd like to drive up there. It's about an hour drive, and you'll be glad you came if you come next Saturday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
And I was part of several events at Chinsegut Hill because the property was owned by USF, and WMNF had a couple of retreats up there, and some other university organizations that I was involved with had retreats and conferences and things like that up there. And I even think one time, you know, I went up there with some family members, and they had some of the old plantation houses. Some of the buildings are still standing. They got a lake on the property, and they got a couple of orchards because it's either peach or pecan or something. They got some kind of fruit, but it's not oranges. So it's something else up there. But the whole experience was excellent. And they got like the fire pit in the middle of the campground. So they got, you know, places for you to stay. You know, they actually got some nice buildings up there. Because I think one of the first times I went up there, they still had tents. You know. So it's been upgraded a lot probably since they changed ownership, and it's part of the community up there, and it's a big deal.
Absolutely. And earlier today, I heard my good friend, Dr. Carolyn Collins, call in on another show talking about an event that Florida A&M University alumni is doing. Florida A&M University manages over 6,000 acres. What do they do with that land? They train black farmers in growing different types of crops. They also have livestock there. I mean, it's an amazing operation. And I have to admit, until last year, I had no knowledge of it at all. But since I've been going up to Brooksville since early last year, Talk with Dr. Gaines. Unfortunately, he's going to be out of town next week when we have the Florida Emancipation Day celebration. But we're going to be partnering with them on some other things down the line. So all you rattlers out there, get up to Brooksville next Saturday and see those 6,000 acres that the state of Florida has assigned to FAMU to manage.
And since we're talking about the Florida Emancipation, just so folks know, I was actually involved with Juneteenth over in St. Pete about 25, 30 years ago when they first got started. So St. Pete has always kind of been ahead of Tampa and Hillsborough, you know, and a lot of the black cultural things.
First black mayor.
You know, with the first black mayor, you know, we know that. And then they actually had the MLK parade a long time before we got an MLK parade. So I'm actually captain of a crew. So the crew used to go over and do the St. Pete MLK parade, and then we finally got our own. So we do the parade here, you know. But St. Pete has always kind of been ahead. But they had Campbell Park over there, and for the Juneteenth, which is June the 19th, when it comes on the 19th over the weekend, you know, they take that whole park and turn it into a black learning center. Because they got a gym there, and they got tents, and they have band, they have music, and turn it into a nice festival. Now they've started doing stuff like that here, and we did one of the first Juneteenth celebrations here in Hillsborough County. I was involved with the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Black Advisory Council, you know, and we did a Juneteenth luncheon, and then my crew started doing the Juneteenth luncheon, and then a couple other organizations, and then there's a national Juneteenth coalition here in Tampa. That's a part of the whole thing, in which we was trying to get the Juneteenth celebration to be a national holiday, in which it is. So now I kind of said, well, why don't we take the whole month? I mean, February is good. That's Black History Month, but Juneteenth is a specific event that we as people can celebrate, because nobody has to tell the Jews when it's time to celebrate Passover, and nobody has to tell the Muslim, you know, about Ramadan and a lot of stuff. And so we don't have to kind of ask people, can we celebrate something that's specifically about and for us? So I have been encouraging people, even though COVID kind of stifled it a little bit, you know, but next year and the year after that, and the year after that, more and more events are going to happen in June to help celebrate Black freedom, Black liberation, Emancipation Proclamation.
And in addition to the celebrations in June, what I'm asking people to do is focus on Florida history in addition to focusing on national history. Because Juneteenth, June 19, 1865, in Galveston, Texas, that was the last community to get the Emancipation Proclamation read and enacted, because that's the last place the Union Army showed up.
Right.
That's the reason for that.
That's the furthest west the country
Exactly.
went.
The enslaved blacks in Tampa, let me just talk about Tampa for a second, were liberated a whole year before Juneteenth. A whole year before. Now, May 20th, 1865, that's the official Florida Emancipation date, because that's when the proclamation was read in Tallahassee. It's a huge celebration every year in Tallahassee. They've been doing it since the 1980s. That is a paid holiday for Leon County employees. Okay, May 20th. That's how serious they are about celebrating Florida emancipation. Because the Tampa Bay History Center, our mission is to focus on Tampa Bay history and Florida history. Florida history says that it was May 20th, 1865, when the enslaved blacks in Florida were liberated. So this celebration that has been in Tallahassee for many years, for the first time to my knowledge, is coming to Central Florida when we have it in Brooksville next Saturday. Again, we're going to read the Emancipation Proclamation, and we're going to have a lot of food, a lot of local vendors, We have the youth choir from Allen Temple African Methodist Episcopal Church going up to sing. My pastor, Dr. Glenn Dames, is going to be there to do the invocation. We have some local talent who are going to be singing and performing. We have several reenactors. Many of you, I'm sure, know Donald Dowridge, who portrays Frederick Douglass. Frederick is going to be there in the person of Donald Dowridge, and we have many other folk coming. But the main purpose, again, is to focus on Florida history. We will do tours of the manor, the old plantation house. It's actually the third house on that site, but on the same site. And here's the thing, two things that I want to say when it comes to black folk. There were over 60 African people who lived on Chinsegut Hill back in the 1800s. Most folk have no idea that that's the way it was. We know there were several white owners. The house passed through several generations of folk, but there were about 60 black people who lived there, who worked there, who grew crops there, and when they got their freedom, some of those black folk actually acquired some of that land on Chinsegut Hill. That's what really excited me about it when I learned that story. And just so many things that we want to do. The Tampa Bay History Center is doing excavations now at the site. We're digging up in the area where people once lived, and we're finding evidence, material evidence of their life. This is sort of the heart of the History Center, where we curate items that we find, and then we develop a story around those items, and we have photographs. So a lot's going to go on. It's a free family event, and what we say is that this is another hidden gem that a lot of people don't know, Eddie. When Tampa enslaved African people got their liberation, which was actually May 6, 1864, some of the soldiers, some of the Union soldiers who came into Tampa, some by up the Hillsborough River in the U.S. Navy, and some marched from the east heading into Tampa. Some of those soldiers who freed the blacks who were enslaved here, May 6, 1864, were black soldiers. Many of them from Maryland, part of the 2nd U.S. Colored Troops. Why don't we know that history now?
Yeah.
Why don't we know that history? Why don't we celebrate that? Well, that's what I do when, I don't do many tours anymore, but my tour would always end at the University of Tampa, Plant Park. There are 2 cannons there, Eddie, and a plaque. And the plaque tells you the story I just told. Those cannons actually came from Fort Brooke, which was where the Tampa Convention Center is now located. When the fort was captured on May 6, 1864 by the Union Army, those cannons stayed there for about 30 years until Mr. Plant decided to build the Tampa Bay Hotel, which is now the University of Tampa. He brought those cannons across the Hillsborough River and placed them there in Plant Park, where they are today. And there's a plaque that tells you about the 2nd U.S. Colored Troops capturing, along with the white soldiers, the fort and capturing those cannons. I call them the Freedom Cannons. So just a lot of our history that we really don't know.
So Fred,
we got a caller. Caller, welcome to Porch Talk Radio on this fine Saturday afternoon. Who are you? Where are you calling from? And what say you? Hello?
Peace and blessings.
Yes, Sister Connie.
Okay, so I didn't know. So anyway, I just want to really appreciate this, this historic view that Brother Fred is laying out. And my question, and it has always continued to be, things that we don't know, we don't continue to struggle for. And so the ending of enslavement for our people was based on struggle and our willingness to be free. And as we watch regression against voting rights, regression regarding the concentration of black bodies in these new encampments called prisons, the gentrification of our communities right here in this city, where the History Museum and some of the Vedic development you can find where black people once lived, but we can't afford any of it anymore. I'm hoping that in this celebration, we capture our courage to stand up, to push back, to fight back, to end the misery that
for calling.
You know, Fred, I had a quick question for you. On the day that the act was read, you said in 1864?
Different dates in different places. In Tampa, it was May 6, 1864.
So the question is, when were the people actually free? Did it happen when it happened in Tallahassee and they read it out that day, that time? Did it just happen magically across the state? Or did it have to go city to city back then?
Pretty much city to city.
Okay, all right. Didn't know
What
that.
happened in Tampa is when the Union Army liberated the city and the African people here were free, then the Union Army, there really wasn't much of a reason for them to stay here.
Mhm.
They were here less than a week. And then they left and went north, back where there was still fighting going on. I can't tell you exactly why it took a whole year from the date in Tampa to the date in Tallahassee. But the Union Army...
So there was a reading first, and
Right.
then it took action.
Right. And then they stayed here to make sure that it was enforced.
Right.
But most of the Confederates were not in Tampa. I mean,
Mhm.
the people doing the fighting, they went to South Carolina and, Tennessee, other places. That's where the Union Army went. But May 20th, 1865 is the official Florida date. What I'm trying to do is to unify our state around that date. The people in Galveston, Texas, and the state of Texas did a marvelous job of marketing and making sure that their liberation became a national holiday.
That's right.
I applaud that. And I'll still go to Juneteenth celebrations. Anybody wants to invite me, I'll come if I'm available. But let's not turn our back on Tampa history and Florida history. May 21st. Now, next year will actually fall on May 20th, which will be a Saturday.
Right.
We're always going to have the celebration on a Saturday when people aren't working and more folk can come. So that's pretty much where we are. I appreciate Sister Connie's comment. She's always right on time and always looking at the bigger picture. I mean, this is just a one-day celebration, but we're going to be talking about not just what happened, but the better we understand history, the more we can predict the future.
Right.
And I think Eddie keeps hitting it that why do we have to wait to get somebody's permission?
Right, we don't. And
Yeah.
and the other thing I want to make sure folks understand, if you ever sit down and talk with, see, I'm 68.
Ooh.
If you sit down and talk with people who are older, whose families have been around a long time, they will tell you stories back when the blacks and the Indian were pretty much, brothers. I mean, a lot of the blacks that came to Florida got involved with the Seminole and the other Indian tribes that was here. So it wasn't like Florida was a runaway slave state, but a lot of people from other states came to Florida because the Indians had such a great relationship with the blacks to play, especially in South Florida.
I can't imagine this being taught right now, Eddie.
So a lot of stuff didn't get mentioned and didn't get recorded, didn't get reported because my grandfather's mother was an Indian, and the generation of the women in the Howell family looked pretty much like Indian. High cheekbone, long black hair, the whole 9 yards, and I kind of know because he used to tell us stories about his mom and stuff like that. And that's my grandfather. So that's just one generation, past. So if you go back 2 or 3 generations, it's a lot of rich stories out there that never get told. And even the chief of the Seminole Indians back then had a black wife. A lot of folks don't know that.
That's not PC, Eddie.
He had several wives, but one of them, at least I know, was black because part of it came down through conversations, and I've heard Indians talk about that also. So we have a very, very rich history.
Absolutely.
And for some reason, every time people start talking about black history, they just assume the transatlantic slave trade started it. Our history go back 6,000 or 7,000 years before the transatlantic slave trade. So we only got the last century of it, as to what happened and how bad it was. And we can't ever forget that blacks in America went through the most brutal, horrifying form of slavery ever suffered on this planet, because they didn't treat us like people. We was treated like chattel. We was breeded, we were beaten, we was murdered, we were prosecuted. I mean, we was experimented on. All the stuff we do to animals, they used to do that to black people.
Well, one of the things too, Eddie, thank you for those comments. One of the things that I focus on is let's not fall for the trick of settling for the knowledge of African American history only.
Right.
Because African American history starts with slavery.
Right.
What about those thousands of years before then, as
Right.
you just alluded to? One of the things that's happening now in Hillsborough County with the school district, we have an African American history task force that focuses not just on African American history, but I'm learning more and more about the concentration of African history being taught in 10th grade. Now, as far as I know, that's the only grade where there's a focus on it, but that can change, just like other things change.
Absolutely.
But that's a place to start. Let me say one thing, to make one comment about the relationship between African people and Seminoles and other Native Americans in Florida. While it is true that there was intermarriage, but there also were Seminoles and other Native Americans who owned African people during slavery and during the Trail of Tears. Many of us have heard about the Trail of Tears, but we need to know what happened in Florida and in Tampa in the 1830s during the Trail of Tears, when the federal government was focused on trying to remove Native Americans and black people from the state of Florida to make it safe for white settlers to come in. The federal government, and this is documented, this isn't Fred Hearns just talking off the top of his head, the federal government paid Native Americans to capture black folk, put them in pens in Tampa,
My goodness.
where they were loaded on ships and sent across the Gulf of Mexico to be sold in the slave market in New Orleans. That happened in the 1830s.
Right.
So let's not deceive ourselves in thinking there was always this love relationship between blacks and Native Americans, even though they did intermarry and they had children together. And yes, Chief Osceola did have a black wife. One of his wives was black. But it's a long, complicated story that we can't really cover in just a few minutes. I hope I'm making people curious, so they'll contact me at the Tampa Bay History Center.
How do they do that?
I'll come out and talk to your group.
How do they do that?
I'm at 813-545-3183. Fred Hearns, Black History Curator, Tampa Bay History Center.
Website?
And that's my cell number, 813-545-3183. The main number is 813-228-0097. And we're down in Chownside, right next to the Amalie Arena, 801 Water Street.
And when we was talking on the phone about you coming on the show today, you said they got a new Black History exhibit.
Correct.
That's getting started. It's not done yet, but they're working on it, right?
Correct. And I'm actually collecting and putting out a plea to the community to donate items, personal items, that are at least 50 years old. That's what we're looking for. We have several yearbooks, but we are looking for more. We've been sort of promised something from the original Blake High School. I hope it's going to come through. A jacket that they wore at the original Blake High School. We have one from Middleton High School. I've talked to some people about getting something from Marshall. Those were the three historically black high schools in Tampa and Hillsborough County in the 1960s, early 70s, when desegregation came. And other items that people have that reflect black culture, black life in Tampa from at least 50 years ago. We collect those items. Many of them will be on display at the Tampa Bay History Center. And what I've said to people is, things that mean a lot to you right now that you've been holding on to, we don't know what they're going to mean to your grandchildren. We don't even know if they'll know where those items are. If you donate them to the Tampa Bay History Center, we're open every day but Christmas and New Year's. You can come down there, bring your family, bring your friends, and if they're on display, they'll be available. So this is a new concept for a lot of us in Tampa. I understand for our culture, that's why we are used to throwing things away and bringing in whatever's new. But let's stop doing that. Let's hold on to those items. And give me a call, and we can see if we can use them and put them on display at the History Center.
And the website?
Well, TampaBayHistoryCenter.org. www.TampaBayHistoryCenter.org is our website, and you'll find information there about the event next Saturday, May 21st, and about the new collection. It's going to open in May next year.
Mm-hmm.
We're actually going to tear down a wall and increase the area where African American exhibits are on display. The collection is small right now, and that's one of the reasons they brought me on board, to expand that collection. But in order to do it, I need the community support. So if you've got something you think should be displayed, give me a call, take a picture of it, send it to me, and we'll talk about it.
Excellent.
Okay, let me get in here because you said Blake, and then you said Milton, and you said Marshall. See, a lot of folks don't know where Marshall was. Marshall was Plant City Black High School.
Oh.
Plant City had a black high school. I know Marshall because, you know, I'm from Lake Wales, and we used to play them football.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so this.
So beat them?
Well, they had a good team.
That's a no.
We see, you
Carry
talk
on.
about years and years and years of game. We won some and we lost some.
Sounds like an Al Bundy story here.
We won some and we lost some. You know, but we played Marshall because of the level of school they were. So you see, back in the day, you know, Lake Wales was a 3A school,
Mm-hmm.
and A being the big schools, and we was 3A, and then they had 4A, like in Frostproof, which
Okay.
was like a little tiny school, little tiny town. But then you got to take in consideration, back then, in the 50s and the 60s, and the early 60s, everybody had at least one black high school because we couldn't go to white school. That, you know, that was before integration. So you had, you know, kindergarten
And
you know,
Strawberry schools.
Yeah. You got to take, and see the thing way back then, Gasparilla was a holiday, and hell, from even in Lake Wales, Gasparilla used to always be on a Monday.
Huh.
They had the parade on a Monday, and at the end of the parade ended up at the fairground, and the fairground was downtown. So a lot of people don't remember that. We got a big old giant fairground out there on 301, but that fairground used to be downtown, right there where the University of Tampa at.
Huh.
So,
No idea.
so, you know, so a lot of this is history, you know, and a lot of folks never learn that. I have to say this right now, that, you know, after you get to be a certain age, the new guys and girls don't give a crap about some of this stuff. You know, only because we lived it, you know, a lot of it that we remember it, and like Fred say, it's gonna only be in museums that you hear and talk about this stuff. And what I want to say to Fred is something, you know, way back when I was at Tampa Journal, we had a Black History Day. Well, it had a Black History Week, and I got the CEO of Tampa Journal to allow us to do it. So what I did back then, I went to USF. USF has a African mass and other things that they from time to time would put on exhibit. But USF have an excellent collection of African artifacts. So if at some time, you know, you have a little space in your new exhibit space, you may want to go out there and find out, like on some kind of reoccurring, rotating basis, to get some of the stuff they got and just show it. Because Black history, like I say, it wasn't just about the transatlantic, you know, slave trade. It started back in Africa.
Wow.
And something I gotta say right now, you know, while I'm talking, every pharaoh, not some, every pharaoh was black.
Oh.
Egypt back then was black. It was not Arab. It was not white. You know, good marketing. Europeans, you know, tried to downplay everything that blacks did back in those days, 4,000 years ago. And if you look at the population now, it's mostly Arab. But see, back then, it was all African. And I mean Africans, like the Africans, you know, who are African. And as a people, they haven't changed. Today, they look just like they did 4,000 years ago. So every pharaoh, no matter what people tell you, Cleopatra, the most beautiful woman in the world, that had the Roman kings and gods and all that kind of stuff fussing and fighting, was a black woman. I'm gonna say that.
She didn't look like Liz Taylor.
She wasn't. She wasn't white, and she wasn't Arab. She was black. So all the stuff that they tell you, and just for the record, come October this year, I'm planning to go to Egypt myself to see some of that stuff because I've been wanting to go to Egypt my whole life. I've been all over the world, never been to Africa, but that's gonna change too.
Get you an Indiana Jones hat. I think that'd look great on you.
Yeah. So all this stuff, science, math, dentistry, medicine, even building great monuments started in Egypt. The Europeans learned from the Egyptians, and the Egyptians pretty much taught the Chinese, the Japanese, Oriental. Matter of fact, there's no place you can go on this planet today and not find some kind of remnants of the original African people.
Huh.
Eddie, let me recommend to you if you're going to Egypt, Anthony Browder. I don't know if you know that name or not, but if you would Google Anthony Browder, he is a black Egyptologist. He has been to Egypt more than 40 times, doing excavations in these tombs, and he's finding items that no one else ever discovered. And most people aren't even aware of who he is.
What's his name again?
Anthony Browder. Anthony Browder. Look him up, and I'm not sure when he's going to be there, but he goes pretty much every year, a couple of times every year. He also does these experiences in Washington, D.C., Egypt on the Potomac.
Right.
And he shows how, and you are aware a lot of this, how the city of Washington was laid out. We know of Benjamin Banneker. We may have heard of some other black folk who were involved in how the city of Washington, D.C. was laid out. And he shows you the direct correlation between how the city of Washington, D.C. was laid out and how certain cities in Egypt were laid out, to show you where that architecture came from. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and the other thing that I want to make sure everybody know and understand, and there was a time in our history in which Europeans came to Africa, Socrates, Plato, all them brilliant Greek and Latin and Roman folks, and took the knowledge and went back home and pretty much say, yeah, look at what we discovered. Look at the science that we make and we create, and see, it's just like modern time, fake. It was all, they went back and claimed the knowledge and the creative talents and ability of some other people as their own, and took credit in history books as being these great philosophers and people of knowledge, knowing all the time that it wasn't theirs, but they just figured they owned it and they can share it with the rest of the world under their name and under their lineage, and it's a lie.
Yeah.
It's a lie.
The great university at Timbuktu is where many of these people came and studied and learned from the brilliant Africans who went before them. And, we keep talking about Egypt and we keep talking about Africa. Look at your map, and you'll see that Egypt is certainly in Africa.
Yes.
And so it's all the same. So we have a duty and a responsibility to our children as well as to ourselves to learn this history. There have been several studies that have been done that have looked at black children. And why is it that we still have, after all these years, we still have an achievement gap?
Right.
And the number one thing that most of these studies point to that should be done to give the black child what that child needs to achieve what it could achieve, teach him his history.
Right.
Teach him his history. Let him know who he came from. And once we do that, and we've never really done that consistently.
Purpose.
There have been different groups of people that do that, but as a collective, as a whole, we don't do that. And guess what? White children should be learning this history also.
Yes.
Not just for us to learn.
And I'm going to tell you the greatest lie ever committed to a people on this planet. If you ever look at the planet Earth from outer space, and you look at Africa, you will see that Africa is big enough to put the United States, China, Canada, all the Russia, all the modern, big places, all of those countries can fit inside the continent of Africa and still have room left over. But when you see it on a map nowadays, they make it look like it's about the same size of the United States. And again, it's all about perception and marketing. That stuff don't just happen. And us folks here at Porch Talk Radio know and understand that, when you get lied to and consistently lied to over and over and over and over again, you learn that you need to go out there and find out for yourself about some of this stuff, because all of it, you just can't take it on face value, especially when people have such a long history of lying to us about who we are and what we did, where we came from.
Exactly. And there's one thing about human nature. Human nature doesn't change that much.
No.
So that's why it's so important to study history and learn history. You see what certain people did when they were in certain positions of power or authority, and how they undermined their victims. Pretty much the same way.
Right.
It just changes from ruler to ruler, and from the victimized to the victimized. So this is a responsibility that we have. We're mixing history with a day of fun on May 21st, getting back to Brooksville. I thought it was more appropriate to do this at Chinsegut Hill because there's actually a house there that's set on the same site of a plantation, what the enslaved used to call the big house. They worked in the big house. They couldn't live in the big house. They lived in cabins around the big house. We still have that site here in Brooksville, just an hour north of Tampa. It's the second highest hill in the state of Florida, Eddie, by the way. I know you've been there.
Yeah.
There's always a beautiful, nice breeze blowing on top of that hill, man, in the middle of the summertime. So, again, I'm encouraging people to come out. The address is Chinsegut Hill Road, so that's not going to help you. But if you go to MapQuest, or you use your instruments on your phone or in your automobile, just put in Chinsegut Hill, Brooksville. It'll take you right there. It's 1 hour up I-75 out of the city of Tampa, or the Veterans Expressway, either way. And it's a free event. We want everybody to come out and enjoy themselves next Saturday.
Okay, on this day, May 14th, 1878, the name Vaseline, which I know y'all are all familiar with, was registered by A. Robert Cheesebrough. On this day, May 14th, 1879, Thomas Edison incorporated the Edison Telephone Company of Europe. See, a lot of people didn't know that. The company was incorporated of Europe. On this day, 1897, The Stars and Stripes Forever by John Philip Sousa was performed for the first time at a ceremony that was held for a statue of George Washington. It was revealed. On this day, in 1913, the Rockefeller Foundation was created by John D. Rockefeller with a gift of $100 million. Gabriel.
This election cycle is black and white. The Democrats are the party of crime, the party of chaos, and the party of death. The Republican Party is the party of law, order, and life. And for any pastor who is pro-choice, he's not a man of God, as pastors are supposed to be leaders. You need God, and God said that children are the most vulnerable among us. So any pastor who's leading babies to slaughter is not operating with the Spirit of Christ, but of the devil. On a lighter side, my wife just stopped and said, "You weren't even listening, were you?" I thought, that's a pretty weird way to start a conversation. That's it for me.
All right. Thank you. Tampa Bay, until we do this all again, we'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat station. Bye-bye.
God bless.
And see you later.
Happy birthday to my daughter, Cassandra Franklin.
All right. See you next week.